Hello, Paul O'Neill here. Time to preview the next British Touring Car Championship race weekend, and that is at Croft. I just had to go back in the house because to cover my name up, but I've got some notes on a letter there that I forgot to bring in with me, and some others as well. But yes, so Croft's coming up. There after Croft, it's going to be just 2 weekends of British Touring Car racing to go. So it's getting quite tight, isn't it? Getting quite close. So I thought maybe this time, and I read all your comments, and thank you so much for all the comments on the Jason Plato chat and also the trio at Motorbase. I thought it was very interesting speaking to those guys, and I hope you do realise that I try and go for a different angle on certain things, because there's no point in me. I did have a comment with a guy about why didn't I ask Andy Neat about the incidents. What is there to talk about? It's just like, you know, it'll just be the same thing over and over again if I do that. So I did want to know a bit more about Andy's family and stuff like that. So I hope most people were sound about it, but there was a few people who were a bit annoyed that I didn't ask him. But as I said to him, I'm not Judge Judy, so I wasn't interested in getting into that kind of situation. And also someone had a pop at me on Twitter saying that I was agreeing with Andy on his driving and that I disagreed with Tim Harvey. Let me tell you one thing. I never ever once agreed with Andy or with what Tim said in that interview. I didn't. I think the reason he said it was maybe because I was saying yep, and my SD card was running out. That's not an excuse, but I was just trying to get Andy to tell the story a bit quicker. So yeah, in any instances I didn't agree with anybody. I was just having a chat and an interview, so I hope you do appreciate that. Right, enough of that, that's out of the way. Thank you for subscribing, thank you for all your comments. Honestly, I do read them. And Harry, who was commenting on there was a bit of a white thing, I think it might, let's see if we can, let's see, don't go that high. Anyway, there is still a white thing on the back of the steering wheel. I can't get it off, but he's seen it last time, that's why I've got it out of shot now. Right, I've already bored myself silly, so let's crack on. I'm going to speak to two people. One's a front wheel drive driver and one has raced in the championship in front wheel drive and rear wheel drive. So first of all, I'm going to speak with Joshua Cook. Look at my iPhone 5. I did have an iPhone X or a 10 and I broke it on the first day of lockdown, and kind of the camera broke and then a few other things failed on it and then it just destroyed itself. So anyway, it's wrecked. So yeah, it's very unfortunate. Right, let's ring Joshua Cook, see what he's got to say. Hopefully he knows I'm ringing.
Hello, mate.
Hello, boy. How are you, fella?
Not bad, how are you?
Yeah, I'm sound, thank you. We're recording, mate, so I thought I'd give you the heads up before you call me something like a lid lizard or some kind of horrible Widnesian term, or said I was a Scouser when I wasn't, or, yeah, basically would be just horrible to me.
Oh, I'd never do that. I'm nothing but nice to you.
You are, mate. And that's the annoying thing. I hate it because I always feel really bad when I've said something horrible about you to your face. Listen, I texted you before and I was like, Josh, do you mind having a chat with us about Croft and just a little preview, 5 minutes? And you got back to me and said, I'm just at the services, mate, driving up to Croft. I'll shout you back later. Am I assuming that you're driving the truck? Because I've seen you driving the truck. Mate, why are you driving the truck?
No, I wasn't driving up here.
Okay.
But basically the guys, obviously we shake down this week on a Wednesday. And by that point, all of the guys are obviously ready to go for the weekend. It's not, it's not, I generally think once we've shaken down, the guys kind of go back and just prepare. And there's not two full-time truckies, which is quite the norm at a lot of race teams.
Yeah.
So rather than them just employ somebody to take it to shakedown and back, which is, a few miles from the workshop, because I've got an HGV license, I just said to the guys I don't mind driving it. So I just jump in, on a morning of the shakedown, drive it over, we shake down the touring car, load back up again, and then bring it back to the workshop. So it's only when we're on the build up to a race weekend. But no, I don't drive it up to the circuits.
Okay, mate. I didn't know, because I did pass you on the dual carriageway. I can't remember when it was, and I was like, that guy looks like Josh Cook. Why is he driving that? Mate, it proper threw me. But I think Tom Ingram's HGV won, isn't he? And also, Ash has got some funny license, so he can drive his camper. I don't know. Is it a Class 2 or something?
Yeah, I think they should let all the touring car drivers just drive the trucks, and we should do it. We should do a truck race. I think. Imagine that. That'd be mental.
Steve Parrish. I think that's his name. I remember him with them water-cooled brakes. Do you remember them? Remember them super trucks?
I think they've still got those, haven't they?
Have they? Spray water on them and that'd crack the discs.
Imagine the damage.
Oh, mate.
Imagine the damage we do in those.
It's amazing. To be fair, though, I think Rob Collard would probably win the championship by round 3 out of 7. He'd be a definitely odds-on favourite. Listen, Geezer, the reason I've rang you is I did a little Twitter poll, and I asked people, do they want more laughs? Do they want less laughs? Do they want more technical? And basically just asked people what they want who are subscribing to this. And there's quite a few people watching now, which is weird for me. But less laughs, I was thinking of you, so that's why I've rang it. No, I'm joking. It was more to do with the technicality of things, mate, because a lot of people are asking about setups and this and that, and obviously it's quite secretive, you can't give it away, but you are one of the cleverest guys on the grid. I respect you as an engineer. I'd have you, if someone said you need someone to engineer you that's a driver, it'd be either you or Bushell, because Mike's a pretty good engineer as well. But is that something that you've always loved to get involved with?
No, thanks. Well, when I first started racing Clio Cup, I didn't really have the budget to go and go with a big team, and use all of their experience and expertise. Yeah. So I've always been into cars. I've always been tuning and modifying. So I went to university and did a degree in motorsport engineering just to help me as a driver understand more about it. So I went to Bath Uni, and then since then, obviously, I've been racing every season in Clio Cup or touring cars or in other roles in automotive. But we've also got a tuning company that's based down in Bath that also develops and manufactures suspension. Yeah. So I've got a lot of, when you're doing it every day, not just racing, but during the week as well, you develop quite a big, knowledge about the theory behind it all. And it's quite good that I can look at the theory side of it, and I understand it fully, and then put it into practice on a weekend, and it helps from kind of both sides of the fence. So it's always been beneficial to me, but it's definitely interesting. Yeah,
does it help? Because you know me as a driver, mate. I do not have a clue what rebound really does and bump, and that's not a joke. I actually don't. How I got through my life in British touring cars is because we had the best engineers at Triple Eight, and then I had a really good old school engineer at Tech Speed in the Integra. But does it help as a driver knowing exactly what changes do what?
Yeah, I think it's something that I had to kind of stop myself doing quite quickly, was trying to do two jobs, because it's hard enough just to drive touring cars, and how close it is. You have to be absolutely on your game and know everything about the driving perspective. So it's really hard to not get distracted by the engineering side. Yeah. So whilst I have an in-depth knowledge of it, I can, I'm comfortable enough, and I've got, had engineers that are, like really, really experienced, really good, completely trust them. I can let them do their job and I can concentrate on mine. But when we do get to a handling issue or we're trying to develop something, I can kind of point in the direction that I feel would help. And we can then explore that from a position of knowledge rather than let's give that a go. Yeah. So I feel that it helps us get from A to B a lot quicker than perhaps if I didn't have that knowledge.
Yeah, oh, cool, mate. I appreciate that because a lot of people do, they want to know technicalities of the car and how it works, and I know that British
Yeah.
touring cars, these generation, are actually probably the most complicated since Super Tourer, I'd say, because you've got push rod suspension, easy for you to say, push rod suspension, and a lot of different tweaks you can do. Am I being correct on that?
Yeah, there's a lot. Whilst a lot of the components have to be selected from the range that Toka allow. There's a lot of adjustments on all of our subframes, our suspension, our uprights, all of the wishbones, everything.
Yeah.
So whilst it's a standardized component, there's so much to adjust. There's thousands and thousands of combinations, and every single one will have a negative effect on something else.
Yeah.
So it's a balancing act. And once you're into a race weekend, it's quite tough because if you're not on the ball, there's so much to adjust. You can actually engineer yourself further away from where you want to be, unknowingly. So it's on a race weekend, it is tough. And that's why we always talk about testing and getting mileage in the car, because again, each car reacts slightly differently to certain changes. So when we're going testing, we're putting 5 different changes on and just learning what they do on that particular car. So that when we come to a circuit, for example, Croft, if we're struggling with a certain, understeering issue, whether the front axle hasn't got enough grip and it won't turn as much as we need, we know what adjustment to make on the car to cure that without any massive detrimental effects elsewhere in the lap.
Yeah. Can I ask a quite straightforward question then? And this, I don't think it's been covered actually, but obviously your cars are ex-Dynamics cars, Team Dynamics. Well, they're not even ex-Dynamics cars. The team bought them from Team Dynamics, or and you guys built them up. What is going on? Why are you so far off? If the cars are the same, I know you've won races and stuff, but I'd expect you to be right up there. Can you answer that for the people watching?
Yeah, I mean, we like you said, we purchase the shells and the components from Team Dynamics.
Yeah.
We assemble them, and we have free reign on our setup. In terms of what happens on the car, we have our engines. We lease them from Team Dynamics.
Yeah.
They're built by Neil Brown, and whilst the cars look identical from the outside, there's, as we've spoken about, there's so many different things we can change. And we've kind of gone down our own path. And I have to say, the chassis where we are now on this particular car in 2020 is the best I've driven by far.
Okay.
We're absolutely dialed in with setup. But we know that our straight line deficit is really hurting us on overall lap time, and it hurts us so much on a Saturday.
Can I just stop you there then, because I have looked at split times. That's what I was going to ask you. Why is Camish and Neil further away from you guys? I've noticed that actually lately. So that, and Silverstone was very, very noticeable, mate. I could see it on the times on the actual TSL. Why is that? I'm sorry to interrupt you, mate.
Yeah, no. Again, that's something that we're not completely sure as to why that's the case. We've got Team Dynamics trying to help us work out why, and it's in my opinion, it's nothing to do with the chassis setup. We've swept a lot of things. We've done different tests to see if any of that affects our straight line performance, and it doesn't. Nothing noticeable. We know that's our biggest issue is straight line. And you go back to Brands Hatch at the start of the year, I had the fastest lap of the race, and in the speed trap that goes, the longest one down between going onto the GP loop, I think I was dead last and I had the fastest lap of the race. So it shows you how good our chassis is and how much we're struggling, in the areas that we can't really control.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to it. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. We're not just rocking up every weekend going, well, let's see what happens now. The guys at BTC are working absolutely flat out to try and solve the issue where we know we're struggling.
Yeah.
And as drivers, all we can do is just rock up, do the best we can do, keep tweaking the chassis and trying to get the most out of ourselves. But there's only so much you can do behind the wheel. You know that.
Yeah.
When you've got a deficit, it's difficult.
Yeah, and there's so many people out there rooting for you, mate. It was great to see you get that win at Thruxton. And what do you think you can do at Croft, mate? Why is it looked on as a rear-wheel drive circuit? I have my own theories about that, but it seems, I think Chris Smiley was on the front row in a BTC car last year, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he did a mega job. In terms of why is it kind of orientated to a rear-wheel drive circuit? I mean, there's a couple of corners. For example, you go through turns kind of 2 and 3, and it's such a tightening, right-hander. There's a lot of load on the front axle, and it's kind of understeer limited for us. On all the front-wheel drive cars, not only are they having to brake, turn, and put the power down, they're having to deal with that such a tight radius corner that perhaps in qualifying we can just about make the tyre hang on for that lap, but we are destroying tyres quite quickly. It was resurfaced, the circuit was resurfaced a few years ago, which has brought the tyre degradation back a little bit. But it's still the layout, certainly the final sector where you come in and it is a really tight right-hand corner that's basically second gear, and then the next is like a first gear hairpin. We're really struggling to get the car to turn properly and rotate nicely through those tight sections, whereas the rear-wheel drive cars through that style of corner have an easier balance. They can control it on the throttle a little bit. They're not wearing their tyres out as quickly. So there's a few areas on the lap round here where, from a physics perspective, we struggle, but we can make it last on, for that one lap in qualifying. So you might see a few guys being able to get up there on Saturday in front wheel drive. But I think, as we've seen in the past, when it hits race day, and as soon as the front wheel drive car starts getting hassled, we very quickly burn our tyres out in a race.
Very interesting, mate. No, that's very interesting, because I didn't really race against any rear wheel drive cars when I was there, and I always remember having understeer through turn 2, getting worse every single lap, and then last sector, like you said, the fast left into the complex, the right was horrendous, and then trying to get the thing stopped, it'd be locking fronts up and then no traction on the way out. So that makes perfect sense. Okay, Josh, how do you think you're going to get on at the weekend?
Obviously, last time I came here, which was last season, we had a lot of waiting, and as that came out over the day, I think I finished at the end of the day with a second place. I'm comfortable around here. I've had good success here in the past. I'm coming here this year with no weight. So, you can be confident. I think it doesn't matter so much about straight line performance at a circuit like this. So, as we've seen when it was at Alton Park and there's a lot of corners and it was wet, we were right in it. So I'm hoping, considering this style of circuit, I'm hoping we're going to be somewhere right near the sharp end.
Perfect, mate. Well, I am one of those people who'd love to see you get up there, mate, and get these last 3 weekends out of the way and get back in the fight, lad. So good luck to you and everybody, and I will see you up there virtually, my friend.
Nice one. I'll see you on the weekend.
Will do. Thanks, Josh.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye. Alrighty then. Interesting stuff from Josh Cook. I knew he'd be the man to ask, because he's a proper top lad and he knows exactly what's going on. Right, my very special guest for the rear-wheel drive contingent is Andrew Jordan. Let's give AJ a bell. There he goes. My mobile is so hot. It's about 25 years old, this thing. Oh.
Hello.
AJ, hello, mate.
Yo, how's it going?
I'm all right, mate. Sorry, that was a bit enthusiastic, wasn't it?
Yeah, you woke me up.
Sorry, mate. Listen, just so you know, mate, we're recording. We've just spoken to Josh Cook regarding Croft and front-wheel drive stuff. But the reason I spoke to you on the mobile, just to see if you'd come and help us out, is because there's not many people I can think of that have won front-wheel drive races around there and rear-wheel drive races around there. You're one of them, and you're a switched-on guy and know about technical stuff as well. So I thought I would ring you, mate. And that was your first win round there, wasn't it? 09?
It was, yeah.
10. 10.
What year? 2010. Yeah, 2010. First win there. And, yeah, it's good. It's a cool place. done a lot of rallycross there as well, which was fun. My first ever race was actually there in a rallycross car. Yeah, when I was 14. So yeah, some good memories there. It's a challenge. It's a challenging track, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and,
it is. It's old school, isn't it?
Normally makes for good racing. Yeah, it is. And I like Jim Clark S's and Barcroft and stuff. That's proper driver stuff. So it's a bit of a weird one because you have to be brave through there and then really disciplined and pretty neat and tidy through the last sector. So it's a good track. It's always enjoyable. And to be fair, like last year when they resurfaced it, it was a load quicker, but also a lot easier on tyres and stuff. Up until then, we used to, like with the front wheel drive cars, we used to go there with a really soft setup to get it working on that sort of tarmac. And because the track doesn't get used that much, it's actually quite green normally, so you end up running a softer setup. But that changed with the resurfacing last year. So yeah, it's good.
When you say just because not everyone knows the technical stuff, what do you mean when you say a track's green?
Just not very rubbered in. So like a Silverstone or a Donington, say, gets used most weekends. So there's a load of rubber going down. If you go to Croft and the first time you walk around it, it looks very unused. So there's not much rubber, it's gone down. Therefore, there's not as much grip. So you have to then run the car a bit softer to try and generate a bit of roll and then generate the grip that way. And to be fair, like the first year in the Civic there, we really struggled. We just didn't get a handle on the car for those conditions at that circuit. We then learned and went back, I think, in 2013 and was much stronger then. And in 2014, won a race with a Honda there. Reverse grid when I had a big contact with Giovanardi, I think on the first lap. And then it went safety. That was through Barcroft for the lead, and it went safety car, and the steering wheel was so far off. But it was the best the car had been all weekend. I just drove away from the pack, and I think it had like 14 mil toe out on the front wheel, but the thing was turning like a bugger.
So you learned a lot from that then.
Well, we've been struggling all weekend and bent the suspension and just drove away from everyone. So yeah. So when everyone's chasing a mil on setup and stuff, it's not necessarily doesn't need to be that accurate, I think.
I was going to say that actually. I think I remember going around Croft years ago with Vauxhall, and they the roll bar snapped, but they weren't sure when it had snapped, and I was really quick, so they were trying all sorts to figure out what had happened and if it was better with the bar off and running it as soft as you could or not. And I think we ended up taking the roll bar off and having a wicked weekend. But it is a
really. Well, we did that once at. We were doing with the test in the wet. And that was rapid, like literally rapid on times compared to the other two and stuff. Yeah. And we were quicker and quicker, and we were opening the gap further and further to the other two. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this is easy. And then they got it back to the workshop and found that the front roll bar had broken. So then it was like, okay, well, I don't know when we're brave enough to actually try just disconnecting the front bar. But yeah, that was, so again, not necessarily always needing to be accurate.
No, it's crazy.
Just snap a front roll bar and you're good to go.
You do hear that quite a bit, don't you? What have you been making of the championship, mate? Because the reason, again, I rang you for Croft is that you had a pole, 2 wins, and I think, did you have an 8th or something last year? And it was strong weekend.
It was a really good weekend. What have I been making of it? I think, what have I been making of it? I think it's been interesting to a point. The same usual people are actually up there, and I think we'll be there come end of the season. It was good to see Ingram kind of come on strong at Thruxton, because from the outside, I don't think the car wasn't as quick as probably they had expected for the first. They seemed to switch that on.
Yeah.
Ash has been very good. I'm good mates with Ash, so I'm hoping he'll stick it up and win it this year. I'd question at the minute, are they giving him a quick enough car and qualified? Probably not yet, but he's dragging results out of it, and he's looking very impressive. Colin's been very confident, been thereabouts and racking up the points. So, it's a bit of a shame in a way, though, that they're just. I saw some, like a post or something, and it was just about Ash and Colin. And, the championship over the last few years has had 5 or 6 people going to the final round with a chance to win it. So it's good to see kind of hopefully Ingram can get back on track after Silverstone. Obviously, Dan's doing a good job. So hopefully there's more than just 2 of them going in it to the finale. And I think, interestingly, with the quick turnarounds from the team's perspective, like Oliphant had a suspension failure, which when was the last time someone had just a suspension failure in British touring cars on these current regs? That doesn't happen very often. So are we starting to see people dropping the ball a bit on reliability, or are they having to cut corners a bit because of the tight turnarounds? So I'm sure Colin will be hoping that doesn't happen to him, because it's getting to the point now, any slip up from any team can then cost vital points. So, and Camish was impressive at Silverstone. I thought his qualifying time was good. So yeah, it's I think it'll be the usual ones come championship finale, and we'll see who does it.
It's interesting, isn't it, though, that the championship will run into a really weird end of season. Usually it's autumn. It's going to be like nearly winter. Is that a disadvantage to the rear-wheel drive cars with more probably wet weather and cold weather, understeer, oversteer, no front axle grip, no rear axle grip, or should it just be a rear-wheel drive, walk over at the end?
If it's fully wet, then no, then rear-wheel drive are okay. If it's in between, that's I know everyone goes on about rear-wheel drive having advantages here, there, and everywhere, but no one really kind of quantifies the disadvantage rear-wheel drive is at when it's damp, but you have to go on slicks. You're absolutely nowhere then in a rear-wheel drive car. So if it's like that, then front-wheel drive will definitely be the stronger option. But if it's fully wet, then if you get the rear-wheel drive car dialed in, then it's fine. So, and then you'd expect Ash to excel. Because people used to say, oh, is it just because it's the Subaru and the engine sat next to it? And well, obviously it's not that, and it's short-sighted for people to have ever looked at it like that. It's obviously very good in the wet. So I think if I was to predict, I think Ash could do it this year. I think if it comes down to a proper fight on finals day, then I think he's probably willing to go further to win it than maybe the others. But then Dan's doing a good job of clawing his way back into contention. So, I couldn't really predict a winner, if I'm honest. Yeah,
it is. It's difficult, isn't it? But I know that Jason Plato, I spoke to him the other day, and he was very complimentary about Dan. And, so he should be. He's typical Dan Camish, in it, just getting the podiums, fighting against the rear-wheel drive cars. But do you really think he can do it? Do you think that maybe from what he learnt last year and the horrendous last day he had, if he has got a chance, he's probably going to be like Ash, isn't he, and just take no prisoners?
Yeah, I think he almost would need to just, last year was last year. Everyone has a story about it, and bloody hell, he came within a lap of winning it. So that's pretty crap, but he didn't, so that's the way it goes. So if you could go to Brands and just forget about that and do what he can do, then for sure he's won loads before. I remember before race 3 last year, I was trying to stoke the fire a bit on the TV, saying he'd be crapping himself and stuff, trying to just see if anything can make him make a mistake. And he was on to win the championship. So his top drawer as is Ash and Colin and Tom Ingram. So. Yeah, of course he could if he gets the opportunity, and he deserves it. He does a good job. So I just hope we see. I don't want anyone running away with it. Not that it doesn't affect me if anyone runs away with it or not, but it would be good if it goes and has a proper fight on finals day. Because when I see them bigging it up as just Ash and Colin, it's just a bit boring. I need more than just 2 of them in there. It needs Dan and Tom and stuff in there as well. Yeah, no,
I'm with you, mate, for sure, definitely. On the psychological side of it, mate, Ash very well, Colin very well professionally and friends-wise. I don't know how much you talk to him now, but those 2 guys, can you give me a strength and a weakness for both of them?
Ash's strength is that he's just like 100% the whole time, but that can also be his weakness, I think. But I'd rather have that attribute on like a finals day because he'll do absolutely everything he would need to. Colin's strength is just there or thereabouts, and he doesn't seem on the face of it, if he's having a good or a bad day, there's not much emotion. I don't mean that in a bad way, but you couldn't tell if he's having a good or bad day. He's just gets on with it. But equally and not necessarily through any fault of his own, on the last 3 or 4 finals day, he's nearly lost it. And I wouldn't say that's his weakness, but there's been a few times he's put himself in positions, or he's been in positions that he's nearly lost it. So yeah, I would be in Ash's corner in the sense that I think he'd be stronger to really get nitty gritty. But so yeah, that would be the strengths and weaknesses for them both. Dan, I think, is obviously very, very quick. Would a weakness be that he'd look back on last year when he goes there again? Maybe it would be hard to just forget about that. But that's, in my opinion, what he'd need to do if he was going to Brands with a chance of winning it. Is just forgetting what happened last year, because that was nearly a year ago already. So that's life. That's how it is. It's crap. But yeah, he'd need to then just focus on the job in hand and try and win it this year.
Very interesting, mate. I appreciate that. Last couple of questions, AJ. Start line boost has been reduced on the rear-wheel drive cars. Have you seen anything on the telly? Do you know anything about it? They're starting to now say it's too much, and the front-wheel drive cars are out dragging people like Ollie Jackson into Tom Oliphant, who was on reverse pole at Silverstone.
Right. No, I didn't know anything about that. That would be interesting going to Croft, because, believe it or not, rear-wheel drive car at Croft is really hard to get off the line. It bogs so easily. So if it's dry and that reduced, then that'll be hard work. They'll have to work the clutch like mad, because Croft was one. So you normally have so you press obviously the line lock, which activates the lower boost, but you have like a rev limit you have to stick to as well. And Croft is one that I've actually, it's not necessarily cheating because you're still going off the lower revs, but I've not pressed the RPM button, so it gives you an extra couple of revs on the rev limit, because it's been that crucial to logging. So what it is basically, I don't like you spike the rev limit, and when you're hard flat and the rev limit is say 7,000, you'll get spikes that go through to maybe 7,200. So what they do is the rev limit on the start might be at 6.8, and then when you spike, you're only going to 7. So I've done it before, that I've just gone like, I'm not pressing the rev button and hope they don't pick it up, but that will give me 200 revs extra off the line, not to bog. So, but it's more just not hurting the clutch, really. It's, you can get a good start still, but you just have to work the clutch like mad. So, so yeah, so that will be interesting.
Very interesting, mate. No, that was cool. I got my signal, or your signal was a bit bad then, but I got the gist of it, mate, with the RPMs and the buttons, because I hate all that stuff. It's a nightmare, isn't it? Pressing all them things and then trying to get away. Yeah,
it should just be like rallycross. Flat and sidestep the clutch.
And drop it and go.
Just as quick as you can.
Thank you for talking to us, mate. I've got a minute and 30 to go, so I'm just going to say bye to everyone. You're a gent, mate, for coming on, and hopefully I'll see you at Goodwood, lad.
Yeah, I'll see you there. Cheers, mate. No worries.
Thank you, AJ. Bye, mate. Bye-bye. Wow. My word. Well, there you go. So that Croft preview went a bit off on the tangent, didn't it? With Cookie and AJ. Fair play to Cookie for telling us some good technical stuff, and AJ as well. Sorry about the sound quality. I looked and the signal here is okay. I'm not too sure. My phone might have got hot. AJ might have struggled with his, but we got most of it over. And he was just on about getting the cars off the line with the clutch. It can be quite difficult, and it sounds like you need a few more revs because you can bog down, probably because of the surface at Croft. But I thought that was really, really interesting what you're saying. Thank you for those two boys for coming on board. But listen, the preview is done. It's dusted. And a shout out to my good friend Marty, who always edits this. So thank him as well in your comments, because he's top man and awesome. Thanks, guys. Mwah.